r/ask Reddit. What is your "we will never speak of this again" moment? I got up one night to get some water and found that my teenage son was in the kitchen getting food. He was behind the kitchen counter, so I could only see him from the waist up. When he came around the counter into the hall, two things happened simultaneously. He noticed me, and his eyes grew wide in horror, and I saw that he was butt naked except for a pair of socks. He starts trying to panic run backwards on the tile floor. Imagine Scooby-Doo trying to run but getting stuck in place in a flurry of limbs, but ended up slipping and taking a hard seat on the tile. Worst of all, he dropped his hot pocket. I made sure he was okay, then went back to bed and laughed my ass off. Years later, we were driving and reminiscing about funny memories. I said, "Do you remember that night?" And he cut me off with, "Yes." I didn't even have to specify which night. We knew, and we were silent. In my early teens I used to jerk it on the bed all the time. My bed had a loose board on the headboard that would kind of make this clacking sound to my stroking. As a naive child, I assumed nobody could hear it. Turns out everybody. My older sisters, my mom, dad, and even my aunt who stayed with us a lot, heard me jerking off all the time and knew exactly what was going on. I learned this about 4 years after moving out when we all got together and got drunk one night. And on my way up to the bedroom my drunk ass mom goes, "We don't want to hear that headboard clanking tonight or you're going to be washing those sheets." Everyone laughed. I was like, what? And then thought about it all night. Nobody acknowledged it at breakfast. Good god, that was awful. Damn, that sucks. You were totally gonna jerk it before they said that too, right? One time I was taking a poop and feeling very faint. I started getting cold sweats, feeling dizzy and lightheaded. In a panic I shouted for my wife to come help me. As she entered the room I proceeded to faint, fall off the toilet and roll my body to side to prevent injury. Mid-fall a solid turd torpedoed out of my butt across the floor leaving a trail of poop smear. When I came to, my wife was standing there in shock. I got up, grabbed some toilet paper and picked up my shame, and we never spoke of it again. Whoa. Must have been a solid log to make you pass out. You ever had a shit that's so good you faint? When I was 17 a huge photo radar ticket came in for my truck. Something like 40 kilometers over the speed limit. My mom was furious at me. "How dare you drive like a maniac, I raised you better," and all that. But it turns out I wasn't the driver that day. Dad had borrowed it to pick something up. I asked him how much it was worth to him for me to take the fall, knowing she'd turn on him with the fury of an angry mama bear. And that's I got myself a new HD TV that year. I have a really similar story to this. Haha. My dad took my car to work one day because his car was in the shop getting fixed. About a month later a red light camera ticket comes in the mail and my dad opens it and sees it's my car and starts blaming me for it. I look at the picture on the ticket and realize it was on a road near where my dad works, so I'm like, this isn't even me driving, that's you going to work. And my dad was just like, oh, well shit. My husband and I work at the same small office. We were the first ones in that morning and other employees usually don't show up for another hour or so. There's only one bathroom on our floor as it's a small business. Anyway, I had just had some habanero spicy thing the day before and I was in for some punishment on this particular morning. I'm talking doubled over, clutching your stomach. Your farts are fire punishment. I hear a knock on the bathroom door and I assume it's my husband. Hang on, I'm having the habanero squirts. I'll be out as soon as I can. I groan out between awful spurting sounds. I hear a female voice awkwardly reply, "Oh, okay. Sorry Stacy for pulling you into my terrible morning." My husband and I work at the same small office. We were the first ones in that morning and other employees usually don't show up for another hour or so. There's only one bathroom on our floor as it's a small business. Totally thought this was gonna be a sex story. Nope. See, you didn't pay attention to context. They're married, not dating. My brother had an imaginary girlfriend with an imaginary Facebook profile. She would post loving, imaginary messages on his wall. I asked about her a few times, then got a little more persistent. After a while, I got suspicious and did an image search for her photos. They were for another person in another country. Also, no one ever saw the imaginary girlfriend. If someone asked me about her after seeing their loving Facebook exchanges, I would kind of imply that we'd met to spare my brother and myself. Embarrassment. Eventually, he stopped talking about the imaginary girlfriend and she stopped posting imaginary things. I will never ask what happened to her. I'm pretty sure he will never mention her again. She's still on Facebook. So what you're saying is the imaginary GF is single now. Did your brother play linebacker for Notre Dame and then the Chargers? When my best friend died, we figured he would have liked a sky burial kind of, so at the height of the funeral party we released his ashes into heavens with a giant balloon. After a few meters of flight the string has snapped, and his remains covered the mourning crowd. Everyone made their best efforts to get very drunk as soon as possible. We will never speak of this ever. I mean, somebody should, in therapy, maybe? Haha, it happened 10 plus years ago. Now at least I can write about it. There was a countdown for the main event. Guests got their own normal balloons so they could release all at once together with the carrier balloon. This picture stays with me forever. Bright sunny day. Shitload of colorful balloons flying with a big one. Snap. The only sound is his 5-year-old kid crying heavily while looking up the sky covered in the father's ashes. Later it turned out the kid didn't understand, but only was sad because all the balloons got away. But still, bloody hell. My father and I had a porn cold war. There has been a tacit agreement never to speak of it, and we haven't. When I was a teenager, my mother found my hetero porn stash. Both parents confronted me with it when I got home from school, and of course confiscated it, and of course threw it in the bin. Or so I thought. Months later, I happened upon my collection, hidden at the bottom of my dad's wardrobe. Hidden from my mother, clearly. So I took it back and hid it in my bedroom. What's he going to do? Tell my mother I'd taken the porn he'd hidden from her that he was supposed to have thrown out, and he found it again, and took it back, and hid it, and I found it again, and took it back, and hid it. This went on for years, and it's never been mentioned, and it never will be. Hold up, hetero porn stash. So, you're one of the sources of the ubiquitous forest porn? It's like the pre-internet version of being a seeder instead of just a downloader. There was a common porn and tobacco stash in a cemetery near my childhood house. Most of it was stolen from the neighborhood convenience store or kids' parents. Contents always changed. Sometimes folks would dump a whole fresh stash. Other times it'd get raided clean and we'd have to restock. Wonder if it's still there. I had internal bleeding and really low blood pressure. I was in the hospital and instructed to not try to stand or walk since I'd faint. I didn't obey that. I went to take a piss and my girlfriend saw and chased after me. She caught up just in time to throw herself between me and the floor to prevent me from cracking my head open as I fell back unconscious. Dong out. Peeing all over everything on the way down. I awoke with her sandwiched between me and the tile floors, lying in a pool of my piss. And that's actually the moment I realized I should marry that girl. I did. But that's not the story I tell when someone asked, when did you know she was the one? Not gonna lie, that's the perfect story for I knew she was the one. Yeah, that's a story for the wedding if ever I've heard one. My mom told me her Hitachi wand was a back massager. It disappeared when she found out I used it as one edit. I used it as a back messenger. It didn't work very well as one. Dear Jesus. This makes me think back to the time I found a double-sided vibrating thing and my parents told me it was a massager. Your post made me realize. I ducking hate to edit in response to edit. I used it to massage my face. Your edit made me remember that. Please. Stop. My brother and I used to go into my mom's room and grab it out of the sock drawer. It had like a suction cup type thing on it and we used to pit it on our mouths. My mom would get so mad and not let us play with it. Years later we were watching some HBO show and they were showing early sex toys. This particular one was super popular in the 70s and was the first to do a certain thing. Not sure what that was because we had stopped paying attention and were trying to bleach our brains. My mom walked in on me getting a blowjob in high school. She immediately did a beeline in the opposite direction and said I didn't see anything. Then the girl and I went and ate dinner with them at our dinner table and we never spoke of it again. That was the day your mom stopped seeing you as a little boy. Edit. Thanks for all the love. I have a few high rated comments even though this account is newish, and was shocked to find this surpassed them. And the day I realized that I needed a better lock on my bedroom. similar to the porn story that's already been posted. My dad and I have been in a bong stealing war for several years. I guess it's over now that I moved out though. When I was 16 they found my bong and confiscated it. Told me they were going to break it and toss it. A few months later, I found it in my dad's shed. Clearly it had been used since I last saw it. It was dirtier, and also it was stored next to some very shitty weed. Open bracket. Come on, dad. So I took the bong back. And of course he couldn't say anything because he was supposed to have broken it. But he found it in my car several weeks later and took it again. Then I took it back from a different hiding spot in the shed. We've never mentioned it, and never will. Edit. My highest rated comment now is about stealing drug paraphernalia with my dad. I think I've peaked. I can die happy. Well, you could just get high together sometime. Seriously, this is a prime opportunity to extend an olive branch. Poor man can't find anything better than ditch weed. Seems like an easy way into an alliance to me. The time I showed my dong to my father because I thought it was shrinking. I was 17. At school I ate something for lunch that didn't sit well with my stomach. Next thing I know I'm in my classroom hunched over feeling like my stomach is combusting. I go into the bathroom to find that my penis has become short and black, with the skin crusty and dry. It felt like it would rip off if you tug on it a little. When I got home I was hysterical because I thought I would lose my penis, or that this was permanent. I decided to swallow my embarrassment and show my dad. We did nothing about it and eventually the skin went back to normal and my penis grew back to an almost normal size. However, my penis is not as long as it used to be, both erect and flaccid. Still to this day I don't know if the food I ate was the cause of it. It was just a slice of pizza. My dad and I have never spoken of that day. Update. I think it's important to note that I'm black and I have light brown skin, so it's possible that my penis wasn't actually black but the contracted skin made it look darker in color and I confused it for turning black. Also, when I showed my dad my penis looked almost normal. The skin wasn't as contracted and wasn't nearly as dry as it was when I looked in my school bathroom. That's why he decided not to take me to the hospital. That was a true father-son bonding moment. My dad was diagnosed a few years ago with lymphoma. He's in remission now, near the height of his treatment. I went to his house for a visit. He called me into the bathroom and said he needed a hand with something. I obliged, and when I got to the bathroom, he handed me a small box. Reading the packaging, I discovered I was holding a home enema kit. I looked at him. I looked at the box. Then I had a mental image of his anus. Then I looked back at him. Then back at the box. I said, "Oh geez, alright then." He started laughing and said he was joking. Apparently he did the same thing to all of my siblings as well. We all reluctantly agreed to give our father an enema. That's love, folks. The smoking hot guy I met the prior weekend asked me out and, naturally, I said yes, because I'd just met him. I asked if I could drive, and he said no problem. On the way to get some grub, we're cruising along with the perfect tunes playing in the car, windows down, on an absolutely beautiful night. He looks over, I look over, we're both just sparkling. You know, it was one of those moments where you want to take a mental snapshot. And then, I guess we must have driven through an area of something he was allergic to, because he sneezed a couple small ones. Then with one massive blow, honked a wad of snot oil over my windshield and dashboard. But, unbelievably, that's not the worst part. No, he pretended like it didn't happen, and went about talking, and scooping it up with his hands and smearing it onto his pants. I was beyond mortified. I was throwing up in my mouth. My eyes were watering, and he didn't want me to pull over to get it cleaned up. We had to go to dinner like that, with snotty pants. Sigh. I ended up marrying him. We have never, ever spoken of it again. Not even 40 years later. Edit. Holy snot balls, Batman. This has blown up. Thanks for all the excellent karma. Wish I could show the hubs to the post, but, you know, IT's in the vault. The last sentence is great. You didn't see that coming. Haha. I had surgery over the weekend and have been extremely constipated. Yesterday I was squatting over a toilet, crying with a jar of Vaseline sitting next to me. My friend, who had come to visit, opened the bathroom door and made eye contact with me as I was attempting to birth 5 days of fecal matter. She then slowly backed out and shut the door. Everyone's suggesting laxatives and stuff, but I think you should just try locking the bathroom door. How is locking the bathroom door not common? This is beyond weird to me. Not me, but my father's story. During World War II, my father was a photographer for the 9th Army Air Corps. Most of the time it was ground-based, but occasionally he flew. During the lead up to D-Day, he flew multiple missions in a bomber converted to a stereoscopic camera, 3D imagery, platform. The bomb bay had been gutted and the camera installed there. They would overfly France and take pictures until they either ran out of film or the Luftwaffe showed up. To minimize detection, they flew alone with the escort fighters circling out over the channel. In event of an attack, they'd drop until they were skimming the waves and run for England, passing under the fighters who'd engage the Germans while they fled. This, of course, didn't have its risks, and on more than one occasion they'd be caught too deep into France or the German fighters would get the drop on them and they'd have to man the guns. Crew size meant even the photographers had to man a gun. So with all that, here's a let's never speak of this again moment. They were still at a high altitude. One of the guns jammed and the gunner took off his glove and ended up freezing his hand to the metal of the gun. He's yelling for help and my dad goes over and says, "There's 2 ways to get your hand off. Either we yank it off and take the skin off your palm, or we use warm liquid." I know of only one source of that. "Never tell anybody about this," was said. Dad didn't keep his word, and thus was born the often told story of how my father pissed on a crewmate's hand and the guy thanked him for it. Edit. Thanks for the silver. Edit 2. It was urine. Some of y'all mother duckers need Jesus. Reminds me of a joke I saw on r/jokes. Guy goes into a bar and says, "Hey, I bet you $50 that I can bite my eye." Bartender accepts, and he takes out his glass eye and bites it. He then says to the disappointed bartender, "Double or nothing that I can bite my other eye." Bartender is like, "No way. Alright, I'll take it." So then the guy takes out his dentures and bites his other eye. Then he says, "Triple or nothing. You can slide a shot glass down the bar and I can piss in it without getting any on the bar." Bartender accepts and slides a shot glass down the bar. The guy runs after it, but it doesn't get into the shot glass. It goes all over the bar. The bartender is overjoyed and jumping up and down. Then, as the guy is paying the bartender his $150, a guy in the bar yells, "Duck," as loud as he can. The bartender asks if the guy knows what his problem is, and he says, "Well, I bet him $10,000 yesterday that I could piss on the bar and you would be happy about it." Edits. I understand that it's from Desperado, but I haven't seen that. I just heard it on r/jokes. Also, y'all are right. I didn't know that's how triple or nothing works. Had to stay with a work friend one night as we had a conference in his hometown the next day. It was weird enough staying in his spare room, but to top things off, he had a fancy modern bathroom with a square toilet, which of course, I blocked in the morning with a turd the size of MT Fuji. After 30 minutes of fruitless searching for a plunger while the situation went from bad to worse, he knocked on the door and asked if I was okay. I had to tell him not to come in but to just hand me a ducking plunger and some bleach. Apparently his GF did the same thing the first night she stayed at his place, so at least I'm not alone. To this day I cannot look him in the eye at work. Edit. Ouch, my inbox. I get it. Everybody poops. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.